Another interesting tool that you can use to cut a section of one static mesh is the PolyCut. Let's present this idea. So I'm going to add a new box. Let's put in here. And let's say I want to expand the width and the depth to 200 and 200 as well. So pretty good. We have, this is a big box of 2 meters, 2 meters, and 1 meter. Now, let's say I want to create a hole in the center of this object. Well, let's go to the model, PolyCut, and immediately you see by default that you have a hole on this object, and this hole passes onto the other side. What is important about this tool is the difference to when we use the Boolean. This will generate a hole that passed through the entire object. Even if you move this object out or the plane out, the hole is still going to be there. Let me show it to you. The hole is still there. It's just for you to handle it more or better the tool, and I'm going to present you why. Let's say that instead of having the hole like this one, I want to have the hole like horizontal. So now you have the horizontal, and now you can play as well with this position, which is related, by the way, with the snapping tool. Let me move it to 10, the snapping tool, and now you create a hole like this one. Of course, as usual, as you might think, we can define the polygon scale. We can move it up or we can move it down. This is a matter of your own preferences, and of course, the width. And this is, I have to say, the combination of these two elements is really, really amazing, if you ask me. Let me put this in 5 to see what is happening. So at this moment, you move it so far away that you literally remove the element. The other thing are the subdivisions, and the subdivisions are very important because depending of how much geometry you want to add to your object, you can have more or less. Let's say I'm going to move it to 32, and in 32, as you can see, it's more rounded, it's looking better, but of course, remember that the cost that is going to have for you. Now, let me cancel this because there is another thing, another option that you have. In the PolyCut, you don't have only the shape of a circle. You can say, well, I want the shape of a square. And as you can see here now, there is a square. And as a square, you can select a rectangle, where you can define the width and height, or you can select a round object, which it's basically a rectangle with the round corners. I'm sorry, it's a round rectangle. And then you can define a custom where, yeah, I think you can play with several elements. But the most used, the ones that I use the most is, of course, the circle and square. Of course, these are limitative for you, which is not the case if you want to use the Boolean, for example, because in the Boolean you can define any shape that you want. But in the cases that you want to do something, let's say a bit more simple, then this is going to work for you. Now, the other option you have using this tool, the PolyCut tool, is by default you have the cut through, but you can also have the trim inside, which literally creates a hole as we've seen it before, and it is not doing anything like a hole until the other side of the object. It's just making a hole on the face where we are locating the trim. The other option is that you can use the cut through, which is the one that is the default, and you can also use the trim inside, and you can also use the trim outside. And the trim outside is, I'm going to remove all the elements around this object and leaving just the one on the surface, on that face in particular. I have to say, this is not the most useful tool for me, and this is not the operation that I use the most. The one that I use the most is the default, which is the cut through. But I invite you, as in any other cases, to try it yourself. And once you finish the object, of course, if you go to the object and go to the particular static mesh, then you can see that we have a new static mesh with all these properties, with all the characteristics that we are defining here. And if you go to the attributes for this static mesh, then you can see all the geometry that we are creating. And of course, the part of the geometry is going to take more elements, more sides, is inside for the case of when we select a circle as a base for making the cut.